Okay, so in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing exactly how we have a systemized approach to getting the most out of courses, training, books, and all that other great stuff that we all business owners consume, but often never actually implement. I've spent well over £100,000 on courses, training, books, and all sorts over the years. I have been running courses for 6 years now, and I've learned a few lessons along the way, made lots of mistakes, and today I'm going to share all of that so you can hopefully avoid those mistakes and start getting the value out of the training programs you actually invest in. Okay.
So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us, who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools, and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits, and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Dr. Steve Day, and this is Systemize Your Success.
Okay, so if you're anything like me, you've probably invested lots of time and money in courses, books, coaching, programs, software even, that you never actually implement. Maybe you do a bit of it, you dabble in it, but you never really get the true value of what you've invested in. And I've held my hands up. I have literally bought courses I have never even opened. I want the goal, I want the result, but I never find the time to actually get the work done to be able to actually see the fruits of the investment, so to speak. Now, the problem is, or my problem, and probably your problem if you've ever had the same, is that we're busy. We are business owners. We're always pulled off in different directions. And so finding the time to sit down and dedicate to learning something new and then implementing it is actually something that's quite challenging. And even if you start with the best intentions, you go to a seminar, you're really fired up, or maybe you start a course and you do the big warm up at the beginning, like, yeah, I'm going to do this. But then your energy peters out because everything else piles on top, and the workload you've currently got isn't going anywhere. And actually you realize that by doing this course, you're not only taking yourself away from doing your essential work right now in the learning process, but you realize the deeper you go into this learning experience, whether it's a course or a training or whatever, you realize that you're actually going to create a monster at the other end, because all the stuff you're learning, someone's got to actually do something with. So say if you're doing a marketing course, it sounds great. I'm going to do a marketing course. I'm going to suddenly generate more leads, but you're busy. That's why you've not done any marketing so far. You've not got time to post on social media, so you've got a marketing course to learn how to post on social media. The problem is you still haven't got time to post on social media and all the other stuff that comes with it. And so that's the challenge. And this podcast today is my interpretation or my system for how to actually solve that big challenge. And this is what we implement in our business and what we help our clients to as well. And we're talking actually towards the end about how, when you are investing in programs, how to select good ones. And I've, as I said, paid a lot of money for courses of all different grades and all different standards, up to £2,500 a month on some of the courses I've paid for in the past, which is a lot of money to invest. So, and so you expect them to be pretty good. And I've learned a lot from doing that, but I also learned what makes a great course to invest in and the key things that you need to be looking for to make sure that you actually get the results. And this isn't about how good the teaching is, it's about how the course is set up and what will then aid you to be able to actually implement the stuff you're learning. All right, so first of all, I want to talk about mindset, because it's actually, primarily, this is a mindset shift. Being successful with courses and training and books and etc., and actually implementing your business is just a different way. You have to look at this in a different way to what you may be doing at the moment. And if you're anything like I was a few years ago, then you may read a book and think, this is a great book. There's loads of fantastic information in here. And if I just implemented this in my business would then become more successful in whatever area it is, whether it's leadership or systems or operations or marketing or sales, whatever. Now, the challenges or the problem that most business owners face is they believe that they need to implement it. The problem is, as I've said, is we're busy, that we are always pulled in different directions. So you have to move that mindset shift from you being the one that needs to implement it to getting it implemented in your business. And that is a big shift for a lot of people. Now, some of the reasons people struggle with this is they have barriers about not wanting to spend money on training their staff. They see that as a cost rather than actually seeing it as an investment. Because if you hire staff, and the majority of my staff are employed from the Philippines, they're hired as, in inverted commas, virtual assistants, and then I train them up to do all sorts of stuff in my business. And what I get from doing that is the ability to hire affordable people who aren't coming in at a premium of, they've already got this experience, this knowledge. And I'll talk about why that's also a problem in a minute. But because you're not getting them in at that sort of experienced, loads of history behind them, blah, 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 then you don't have to pay for that high premium. So you can get people and spot the people who are, they're keen, they're motivated, they're intelligent, they're eager to learn, they're eager to actually do some good, and then train them up. And so if you do that, then it's not a cost, it's an investment. And you then will get that return tenfold into your business. And so one of the challenges, again, about this is that often business owners, and I definitely fell into this trap, was that I believe that I only got value from my staff for the work they did. So the product of their work is what I measured to see the value that I felt I was getting. And if they weren't producing, therefore I wasn't getting bang for my buck, and then I would think they were, not worth the investment. Whereas if you need to have this mindset shift to understand that learning is part of the investment that you need to make into your staff. Another problem that I face, and a lot of people do, is you believe you need to know everything. You believe you need to know how all the parts of your business work, and therefore you hold back letting go of stuff until you know it. The challenge is you can't know everything. Business is just too broad, too wide for you to be good at everything, for you to have the time to learn everything, and if you do that, you're going to get stuck. So the difference, or the mindset shift you have to make, is I need to know that what I'm asking my staff to do will get the result that I want. And so one way of looking at this is, say you read a book, say you've read a great marketing book, and you think, I would love to implement this in my business. I really like the way this person speaks. I like their ideas, their philosophy, their values. This is the way I want to run my marketing. And so what often I used to do, and what I see many people do, is say, okay, now I'm going to go and try and do this myself. Whereas what I do is, and I'll talk about it in a minute as well, I take that book and just give it to somebody else and say, go read that, because I've vetted it. That's the knowledge I want in my business, and now I give somebody else the job of actually implementing it. Another barrier, you fear because you're investing money into people that they will then leave your company and go somewhere else. And the fact is that's true. They might, but they might not. But in the time they are with you, they're going to add more value to your company. And if you do this right, and do this as we're going to describe in a few minutes, then you don't lose the knowledge that they gain as they're learning. Yes, someone else coming in is going to have to learn some to be able to catch up and do the work. But if you do this right and create systems around the stuff they're learning, it means that knowledge doesn't leave and you're back to square one. You've taken a huge step forward. And if you're savvy, you'll realize that person probably left because they're now skilled up, and therefore they are more value to the workplace. So now they're now in higher demand because you've just skilled them up. So say if you teach someone how to do YouTube advertising, like we're just doing at the moment, you teach someone how to do it, suddenly they can go into the open market and say, I can run your YouTube ads for you. I've got a track record. Here's the results that I've got for this previous company. Do you want to employ me for more money? So if you're savvy, you'll realize that you've invested a lot of money into this person. And if they're really good and you do want to keep them, you should give them a pay rise to keep them on. Simple as that. And one other point I'll make on this is that going back to what I was saying previously about hiring people with existing knowledge and the challenge in that. So you hire someone with existing knowledge, wanting them to come in and add value to your company instantly. And that may happen. So you get someone really good who's on the same wavelength, shares the same values, has the same philosophy, has done the same training as you. They come in and then they can then deliver on the plan that you've got in your mind. Now, what often happens is they come with their own agenda, their own way of working, their own experiences, and they may not do things just the way you actually want them to be done. Now, if you're open to that and you're happy and you just want to hand over, then great. Get an agency to come and do your marketing and set and forget, no problem. But you will pay a cost for that. So you've got to juggle up this. Are you happy to let go of basically the majority of the actual management of it and the direction, just say just run with it and then pay a premium for that? Or do you actually want someone to come in and be molded into your way of working and your philosophy and your values, and therefore hiring someone with lots of experience may actually make that more difficult? So hopefully those mindsets or those barriers about what's holding people back to not going forward will help you then move forward with that. And thinking about how to actually push this forward, you need to have a mindset of, how do I get the result without doing the work? You need to understand, to really conversely what I've just said, to be honest, but conversely saying, like, how do I truly believing you don't need to know the detail of everything. You just need to know the path you want to go on. Understanding the value of having A players in your team and not just keeping people subservient and doing like mundane, repetitive, low value tasks. About skilling these people up and actually paying them more because they are now more valuable, and therefore, creating the A players within your own team. And understand that empowering your staff by giving them knowledge will give them confidence. This will reduce procrastination. It will then increase your productivity rates, and therefore your staff become more valuable. So giving them knowledge gives them confidence, reduces procrastination, increases productivity, and you get more value. So the learning part of this is massive, to actually get more value from your existing team, and they'll love you for it, and they want to stick around because you are investing in their futures and not just being selfishly getting them just to do mundane, repetitive stuff all the time. And it's that philosophy of Business Made Simple by Donald Miller, which is a great book. And he talks about this, about basically you want your staff to demand higher wages from you. You want them to come to you and demand a higher wage because they can prove to you that they are delivering 5 times their wages in value, direct value to your company. Why wouldn't you pay them more? So that's the sort of mindset we need to get into. You need to know enough. You need to know enough about the stuff you want to actually get done, the course you're going on, the book you've read, or whatever, to know this is the right way I want to do it, but don't need to know the detail. I'm just repeating myself because it's so important. Challenges are doing this. So once you've convinced yourself that, okay, I found the course, the mentor, the book, whatever it is, this is what I want to actually implement in my business. You've overcome those barriers about actually, okay, I'm going to pay someone in my company to actually skill them up. I'm going to give them the time, put that time aside so they can actually get that knowledge in and go forward with it. There's still challenges you're going to face. So one of the challenges that we faced in the early days was that we'd read a book. So say, I know Daniel Priestley, Key Person of Influence or something, or Russell Brunson, and a great trilogy of books that I've read countless times. And, you go and read these books like .com Secrets, for example, talks about funnels and stuff. And my business partner was guilty of this as much as I was. And you read a book and then we do a meeting with our staff for an hour, maybe even 2 hours, and try and condense the learning that you got from 8 hours of reading and then 10 hours of contemplation and then some note taking and maybe rereading it, and try and condense that into 2 hours, deliver it, say, right, go and do that, and then expect them to get it. Because what you've got to understand is just telling someone to do something is actually doesn't necessarily mean they understand why they're doing it. And it's when you can give people the context and the background and the knowledge behind the decision to make them do that work, it means they can then work far more independently, and they can start actually thinking and answering their own questions and knowing where to get the answers, as in from the book or the course or the mentor, because it's not actually you, it's not your way, it's the course's way or the book's way, and that's actually where their pool of knowledge it should be tapped from. It shouldn't be all coming from you. So giving people the context of what you're asking them to do allows them to be far more independent. And if you're unsure, if you're thinking about, okay, well, how do I do that? Just think about how you got to that point. So say if you've been, I use Russell Brunson as an example, but say you wanted to implement a funnel strategy in your business. You've got to think, which books did I read to do that? Which YouTube videos did I watch? Which webinars have I been on? Which courses have I done? And then go through those and think about which are the key things that they actually need to do in order to get up to the same speed as me, or same place as me in my mindset, in my my journey. And then they can actually become not only just a doer and actually implement it, they become part of the strategy. They can understand things at a different level. And that just transforms people's love of the job they're doing, but also their value to your company to a new level. When you can start actually debating with somebody about the strategy and the interpretation of the strategy in a course or a book or whatever, that's so different from you telling them to do X, Y, Z. And so another challenge is that people get stuck thinking they have to do the teaching. And hopefully my last example explains that you don't need to do that. You are not the expert in this. If you were, you'd probably already be doing it in your business. But the fact is, you're paying a mentor or you're going on a course or whatever to tap into that knowledge of that expert. Therefore, they are the expert in this. They're the person that should be actually teaching, whether it's through the book or the course, or whatever. They're the one that should be teaching your staff. So don't try and give over secondhand knowledge, as I explained in the example before, because you shouldn't be surprised when they get it wrong if you try and do that. And the last thing I want to point the challenges that people sometimes come up with, and I often get asked this on my courses, like how much time should you give someone to learn something new? How much time should you give them to do professional development training? And the question is, or you'll flip it around. It's like, how long did it take you to get there? And often when you think about it, sometimes it takes a long time. So it may be that you just, you've just invested in a course that's 6 hours long. But actually, there's a lot more stuff that needs to happen. And you've got to realize as well that people, I think when you delegate often, and I'm probably still guilty of this sometimes, is that you delegate stuff and expect it to be done perfectly first time. So you delegate this task of, can you go away and set up this new system and apply the learning from this program or whatever? You expect it just to go absolutely perfectly. You expect people not to almost make mistakes along the way. And then when you do it, you procrastinate. You try and make a decision here or there. You go down the wrong path. You mess something up. You come back. You try again. But you accept that because it's you, and oh yeah. But for me, it's different because I made the mistake because I was thinking other people are the same. So you always need to expect something to take almost double as long, maybe even more, to actually achieve the results you're hoping to. And especially if you're going off the marketing blurb for a course, they say you free your time in 90 days, like we say, is that if you follow it by the book and you do it absolutely right, you can do that. We have proof and evidence that is possible. But actually what happens often is people get distracted, or things don't go to plan, or there's a hiccup that we've not been expecting. You have to overcome that. So we always we've always sort of said with a pinch of salt that it is possible if you're willing to put in the work and get it done. But you've also got to realize that it's not always going to go swimmingly, always going to be perfect, and you may be busier than you thought, and you may not have time to put into the course as much as it's needed to be able to get the results in the speed. So give the same credit to your staff as well, because they're probably already working quite hard, and you taking them away to do training is going to take them away from doing their work, and I'll talk about that again in a second. All right, so how do you do this then? So hopefully I've convinced you of the way of doing this, and more of a mindset shift about getting other people to help you do this, other people to do this work for you rather than you doing it yourself, and then empowering them by actually giving them the time to put the background learning in to be able to then get it at a strategic level, to be able to then implement at a operational level more quickly and with better results. So that's the strategy behind it. And then the next thing is, how do you actually do this? So first off, I start by talking about your role in this. And this may be evident from what I've been chatting about before, but the key thing here is about understanding that your role when going through this process of trying to get course content implemented in your business, your role is to support the person on the implementation. It's about giving them the vision of what you're hoping this will do for your business. So we actually have a project vision board template that we use for this. And it states, for example, what problems do you hope this is going to solve? What benefits will the stakeholders have? How does this align with our company's quarterly goals? How does this align with our company's values? How will success be measured? What time and resources are needed in order to do this? And are those available now, or at what time will they be done? And who will be involved as part of that? So that's your role in this, is to put that work in up front. So when you put someone on a training course, so for example, you put someone on one of our systems courses, you say, go and do that course and come back to me and implement stuff. Well, what are you hoping they're going to get out of it? What was your reason for investing in the course? So you need to communicate that, and don't assume that people know that. And actually creating a vision board for any type of project that you undertake when you want to involve team members, even if you're doing it yourself, it's still a useful thing, but involving team members, it's essential. You've got to be able to get your vision out. And actually, talking about Russell Brunson, I actually listened to a random podcast from him the other day, and he was talking about this, in the value that he basically goes into his business, delivers the vision, and then walks away. And it's something we've done for years, but I really think it's so powerful. And I can honestly, I can point the projects where I've not done this, and they've stalled. They've not been done on. They've taken longer than expected. The results haven't been what expected. They've gone on a skewed direction simply because I've not set the vision up front. So that is an essential role for you to do, especially if you're investing, hundreds or thousands even, or tens of thousands or whatever in some training or program, and you want to get some help with it, then you've got to set that in stone. It's just such good use of your time. And there's two really types of setups or systems, if you like. So if you're trying to get somebody involved in doing something existing in your business, then you need to share your vision about what is happening in order for them to actually then jump on board and be a part of that team. And going back to what we were talking about before, explaining the journey that you've been on by exposing them to the books or the courses or whatever you've done allows them to do that. But I'm not really going to touch on this too much, because actually we're more talking about getting people onto new courses now. So it's a bit of a digression actually. So when we're trying to implement a new idea, so this is when we're, all the examples I've given. You've read a book, you've gone on a course, or you're going on a course, you've booked a course, you've got a new mentor. How do we actually get the person involved in a productive way? How do we monitor their work to make sure they're actually, doing the training and then actually implementing it? These are all the questions that I often get asked when I speak to my clients about this stuff. So we get our staff, if they're doing some training, to create a training log. So we ask them to, at the end of each module or lesson, depending how the course is structured, we want them to note down the main learning points, and as they go, they often actually just create a nice little checklist or whatever, notes to remind them of the learnings. We ask them to explain how they will or how they are implementing that into the business, how we're going to get value from the lesson that they've learned in that lesson. And then we want to then see proof of that going forward, as in the work's actually being done. Another thing we do, which is a more recent idea, but it's so obvious when you think about it, is we get them to actually diarize the challenges they're having as well, the solutions that they found, and the feelings they had, the reasons those challenges came about. And this is super useful for when you're trying to then teach other people. So if you teach somebody how to, let's say, for example, in our didact model, which is our model, our framework for delegation, we have time, the estimated time for doing a task. And if I say to you, you should put the time of how long the task takes on the task, and that's it. I don't tell you anything else. You may do it, you may not. Maybe sometimes, maybe not other times. If I tell you I've wasted literally hundreds of pounds by not including the time, because I have staff that go away and spend hours and hours going on a completely wrong tangent when doing a very simple task, when I only expect it to take 10 minutes. And conversely, when I've got people, I've given them a task that I expect them to take a week over, and they come back, 3 hours later and they've done it, and it's basically a total waste of time because they've missed the point. That it completely, not having the time there to give them a guidance is a total waste of time, and it will end up costing you dearly. If I give you that whole story of the way I learned that lesson and why it is so important, why we include it on every single task we ever delegate, regardless if we're just guessing how long it's going to take or if we actually know, then maybe now you're more convinced, and maybe you'll actually do it because you'll see, oh yeah, I can see the story behind that. I can see why that, Steve had those problems, and maybe I want to avoid those problems. So when your staff are creating the systems for doing the work that you're learning in the training, we'll come to this in a second, is they've got that diary of the feelings and the emotions they went through. So when they made the mistakes, and they're now saying to the next person in line, when they're creating the system, make sure you do X, Y, or Z, they can now say, make sure you do X, Y, and Z because, and they've got a little story to go behind it which backs it up. So you've got to think that if this is a good training course you're going on, they should do this. So when they're teaching stuff, they should give the strategy and the why behind the thing they're going to teach you to do, so you're convinced that it is worth your time to do it. Because if I just said to you, go post on social media and that's it. Or if I say, go post on social media because you're going to attract clients, and if you do it this way, if you put the whole story behind it, then there's much more likelihood you're going to do it. If you know what the goals and results are going to be, and also all the pain you're trying to avoid, so like I said about the time example, if you give those examples, then it helps people. So when your staff are creating systems and they actually give them the lessons they learned behind those, then it means that people going forward will be much more likely to adhere to them and actually do it. And and include problems and solutions to those problems. And so another thing to do, which is, again, it's obvious in hindsight, but often people don't do this. So within your diary, within these lessons of going through step by step, is put links to the relevant material into some sort of like a Word document or a Asana task or whatever you're using. So they've got this sort of diary of their own work and where they learned the thing that they learned, where they overcame the problem. So if they had to go and do some third-party reading and additional resources, or go to Google and find stuff, or go onto YouTube and bring all that in, so you've now got a log of everything, the course content, the book, plus all the other stuff that's been incorporated into this to create this map of actually what happened and everything you needed to do it. And so therefore, when you're going back through this, or when you try to get someone else to come in, you've got all these resources available. And again, we'll talk about the systems in a second. Cool. And when you're then getting your staff to set things up in your business, so they do the training, they learn the stuff, and then they actually go and do it, just get them to hit record and actually record it and start creating your system for actually doing this, because you never know when you might have to do this again. Sometimes you think, oh, I only do this once. I was setting up your Facebook page, for example. I'll only do it once. I only got one Facebook page. I don't need to record this. I don't need to record what I'm doing. Don't reinvent the wheel. If it's already in the training course, and you don't need to then record it again and just to have a duplicate video, that doesn't make any sense. But if there's something unique about the way you're doing it, then getting someone to record it as they're doing it is really, really useful. But like the Facebook page is like, I thought I'd only ever have one Facebook page, but I think now we have 3 or 4. So I've actually done that multiple times. It's not something we do all the time, but it's definitely something that we have to do more than once. And therefore, having a guide for doing that, or whatever it is in your business, then it means you don't have to then end up reteaching somebody time and time again. And then, so that's sort of the plan. That's what they're going to do. They're going to document themselves through it. It gives you evidence they've actually done the work. It helps them with the learning process, and it gives them something to refer back to later. And then when you're actually trying to get your staff to do this, you're going to get pushback. So getting this actually done in a acceptable timeline is all about you making it a priority for your team. Because if you go to your team who's already busy, say you've got a good member of staff that you want to train up, and they're already working 40 hours a week, and that's their allotted time, and you turn around to them and say, hey, I want you to do this training. It's a YouTube intensive training. It's 20 hours long, plus the implementation. Can you just get it done when you can? I promise you that unless you've got somebody who's super keen on doing YouTube and they do it in their free time, great. If you have, then fantastic. But the majority of people will try and fit it in around their work, but they've still got 40 hours of work in a 40-hour working week, and now you're asking them to do something else. So if you want your staff to level up in a reasonable time frame, you have to be the strong enough manager to actually take work off them and give them a lot of time to get this done. If it's for your benefit, if it's for their benefit, then you could ask them to do it in their spare time. But most of the cases, you're getting them to do this training so you benefit as the business. So setting time aside in their diary, clearing work, and not letting it creep back in. When I used to work as a doctor, we used to have bleeps. So wherever you were in the hospital, the people could find you, so you could run and help the patients or whatever. And then we had set times for training, and what used to happen is we'd all go to the training, and like literally the whole way through the training the bleeps would go off and people would be running out. It was so distracting. So in the end they banned bleeps into training. So when you walked in, you had to hand out, it wasn't quite like going through a metal detector, but it felt like it. You had to hand over your bleep to the person who was basically going to man your bleep. So they would phone up the ward or whatever and say, oh, what's the problem? Yeah, Steve's in training. He'll get back to you in half an hour. And they'd write a list of all the tasks. And then that person would know they can go and find somebody else if it's an emergency, or they can wait for you to finish. But by doing that, the hospital then gave us permission to ignore the world to get the training done. And then we got the training done. And you've got to carry that same philosophy into your business. You've got to make people block time out in order to upskill and then be able to add value to your business. Because, and this is from their side, why is this so important? It's not just about the time, is they believe they're getting paid for the results of the work they do. So therefore, if you don't make this absolutely clear that this is the most highest priority task you can possibly do on a Tuesday afternoon between 2 and 5 p.m. or whatever. If you don't do that, any other priority will come in and overtake it. So you have to put it on a pedestal. This is the highest priority task for, 5 hours a week or whatever you're going to allot to this. And then if they don't do it, then they don't hit their, so have a KPI for this. How many hours of training did you do? How much did you implement? So you should do 5 hours a week on their one-to-ones, on their, when you do their coaching calls with them, or their one-to-one training with them, management calls, ask them, how many hours have you done? Let me see it on your timesheet. What have you implemented? And you don't have to do this once or twice to get them really kicked into it. When they realize how serious you are, then they'll actually do it. And that's one of the biggest barriers most people get from getting their staff to actually get on and do stuff and implement stuff from courses, is the fact they don't allot enough time or set aside time. They expect them to do it on top of their existing workload, which just isn't realistic. Okay, so a big tip that I learned from software development project management. So there is a methodology called sprint in software development, and in agile project management they have sprints. And what a sprint is a short space of time, typically a week or 2 weeks, in which there is going to be a deliverable result from doing a piece of work. So say if you're building an app, then you had 10 new features on this app. You could break up the delivery of that app into 10 stages, 1 feature per stage or per sprint. And therefore, even if you stopped after stage 5, you're going to have an app with 5 working features. Whereas the other way of working is you go at it, full pace. You don't prioritize finishing one thing. So you may do a little bit of, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, then jump onto 10, and then you work on 6, and you finish off 2, and then you have to pull the plug on the project. You've only got one thing done. So by finishing things off one by one as you're going through a project, you can actually get valuable deliverable results, even if you never get to the end of the project. And it's a really important project management skill to make sure that you actually see the fruits of your labor when you actually invest in stuff. And doing courses is no different. So if you can look at that course and see, okay, so if I only did modules 1 and 2, it's still going to be of value to my business, then that would be a really good sprint. If I just do module 1, I'm not going to get anything. Maybe we won't have that. So you can break up the course, and you can speak to your course coach about this, about how to do this, if it's not sort of obvious or not laid out like this. And this is how I lay my courses out. So, module 1 gives you this, module 2 gives you this, module 3 gives you this. And therefore, if you stop at any point, you've still got a lot of value, even if you never got to the end, or you come back to it later, hopefully. And so if it isn't evident in the course that you're buying, then speak to the course director or the course owner and ask them to help you with that. What are the clear goal points that you can set so that you're going to get something of value by the different stages within that course? Just because you might not get to the end, and just be honest with yourself. And something else might come up that's more important. You might have a crisis. That person may leave, and you have to just sort of wait until you've got somebody else in to actually continue that process. So if you can have clear deliverables that give you value along the way, then you're actually getting return on your investment, even if you never quite finish it. And acknowledge those small wins. So every time you get a deliverable that's actually something that you can actually, a tangible result, celebrate it. I don't mean have a party and what you can if you want, but my point is that you're just basically acknowledging it and saying, well done, that's awesome. This is going to be of value to the company. Motivate them to see that the work they are doing is actually being appreciated and being valued, and actually is adding value, and therefore they're much more likely to actually dedicate more time to actually getting the rest done. I also recommend that as you're going through a course, hopefully this will be obvious, but you have a check-in with your staff. Don't just set and forget and hope they're going to get on with it and they're going to just get it right. Have daily check-ins with them if that's what it takes. Definitely have a weekly check-in, or what they call them in Agile is sprint reviews. So at the end of each sprint, at the end of each stage that you've predefined, have a meeting. Discuss what went well, what went badly. Did it take longer than expected or shorter than expected? Could you, add more to the next one or condense it down because it was too long? Were there any obstacles that needed to be overcome? How did they overcome them? Have that sort of debrief at each stage, and make sure you are actually learning from your mistakes, and also then implementing the stuff and actually using or deploying what you're learning at the end of each stage, rather than waiting until the end to get any benefits whatsoever. Cool. So implementing stuff. So as the person is going through the course, they're learning stuff, and that's great. But that is of no value to your business. The only way you get value is when it's implemented. So doing the actual course content itself is benefiting the person doing the course. Implementing the course content is benefiting you as a business. So in order to do this effectively, then as you're going through the course, you need to identify what the recurring tasks are that are being generated to get the value of the course content going forward into the future. So I seem to be using marketing as a great, lots of examples there, but if you're doing marketing, like learning how to do YouTube videos, learning how to post on social media is not benefiting anybody unless you start doing it. Creating one post on social media is benefiting you once. The real value comes when you actually set up the system for repeating this process time and time again going forward. So if you have weekly tasks, daily tasks, or like hourly tasks, or whatever, if it's social media, depends how much you're going tweeting or whatever, your monthly tasks, you basically create these task templates, as we call them, with the operation manuals for each of the steps in this process. So when you get to the end of the course, you've not just got a course of knowledge and someone doing it, you've actually got the system for rolling this out going forward. To do this really effectively, if you have a system for creating systems, it means that you don't have to get the person who's doing the course to do the systemization part even. So they may get bogged down if they've got to do the course, implement the stuff, and create the systems. So having a system creating systems, so you can delegate the systemization part to somebody else, can speed this process up. And having a very structured approach to your systemization will make this go a lot smoother, and will mean that you end up at the end with a result that's usable in your business, and that everybody understands it's standardized. And this is what we teach day in, day out, and it's our bread and butter in our training programs. If you need something like that, you can just reach out, go to our website, systemised.success.com, and jump on a webinar or jump on a call with us, and we will help you out. But that isn't the point of today. I just want to mention that as I'm going through it. So once you've got your daily, weekly, your monthly tasks assigned, and this is not about going through the course content. Just really clear. This is the outcomes of the course needed, or the implementation of the course needed to continue getting value of this program, of this course going forward into the future. Because ultimately that is what you're trying to do in this business, by implementing a course in your business. It's about getting longevity of continuing this process going forward. And that's how you do it. This is how you do it without it sort of just getting lost to the wayside as you finish the program. So as you're going through, you're going to create these systems. And then you set your KPIs to monitor those systems. So you have lead and lag indicators for your business. So your lead indicators, in our social media example, would be how many posts are getting done. So if the course says you do 5 posts a week, lead indicator, have I done 5 posts this week, or 1 post a day, or whatever it is what the frequency you're going to measure. And the lag indicator could be how many shares, likes, and impressions I've got, or whatever it is. So the point is that you need your lead indicators to make sure the work can continue to get done, and your lag indicators to keep on proving the quality of the work. And so set those as you're going through. And again, if you're unsure, ask your coach, ask your mentor, ask the person running the course, what are the good KPIs that you measure in your business to make sure this stuff is done right? Because if they're teaching you this stuff, they should have all this in place. They should know how they measure the success of the stuff they're teaching. So ask them if it's not evident in the course. It may be, but if it's not, ask them. And then also you need a plan for continued improvements. So hopefully with your course, you're going to get some ongoing support beyond, say if it's a 3-week course or 4-week course, hopefully you're going to get some support going forward to be able to actually continue improving it beyond the date of the actual getting the work done part of the course. So make sure that your staff are tapped into that, and I'll talk that in a second about picking good courses and some of the features or the benefits or whatever you should look out for in the course styles. But yeah, so having a plan for improving your courses, both while you've got the coaching support to make sure you're getting the most out of it, and then going forward. So how is this person going to, or whoever's taking this over, going to keep the knowledge updated? One of the things I'm going to mention in a second is about having lifetime access to an updated course version, and then I recommend you have a plan in place for your staff to go back through the training, look for any updates, or if there's announcements of updates, to go back through and make sure those updates are getting pulled in. And if there's if there's a forum or a Facebook group or something you can remain a part of, then to keep that person plugged into that and have that as part of the work of running that system is actually engaging with the course that you paid for. If you can get lifetime access to something like a forum or whatever, then you can continue tapping into that knowledge going forward. So the last part of this is about the expert. So you've now trained up this expert in this particular whatever it is you're teaching them to do on what the course is teaching them to do. So you had someone that had less knowledge, and now you've got someone who's got a lot more knowledge. And they've also, if you follow this process, they've documented what they've done, they've created the tasks or the operation manuals for it, they're now in a position, I should say, to delegate this work out. And that is, in my opinion, what they should do. They have now created the system. They are what's called a knowledgeable worker. And now it's their turn to delegate down to somebody coming in to free their time to continue managing and improving that system. Or if they're particularly good at creating systems, you might put them on another course to actually start implementing a system in a new area of your business, or expanding, continuing, with marketing. There's a never-ending number of things you could do. So you could build something up, in a different area, or in systems. There's always, or operations. There's any number of things you can get someone to do. So once you've got that knowledge trapped in, created a system out of it, it's happening in your business. Now is the time to actually elevate that person up by hiring an assistant. So I recommend hiring virtual assistants from the Philippines. And again, it's something we coach people on, and we have our recruit hiring system, etc. And so by getting people to hire an affordable assistant so they can delegate down, elevates them up, they now become above the system, so they can actually have a much more strategic look at it and actually improve it better. And it also frees up the time to focus on other stuff. Cool. So hopefully that has given you a structure to how you move your mindset from you doing everything and needing to know everything about not investing in your staff to realizing the value of investing in your staff. And that's how you're going to get, you'll grow your business and expand your team in a affordable way, to how you actually overcome some of the pushback and the barriers you're going to get from your staff, to giving you a plan for actually implementing or going through the course content, documenting and creating the training system from that, to how you implement it, create the systems for it, and then delegate it. That's the life cycle of you getting the most value possible out of a training course. And it's none of it, or very little of it, is done by you, apart from you checking in and managing and directing and pointing things from time to time. So the last part of this, and it really has gone on for a little bit of time today, so thanks for bearing with me if you're still listening in. So the last part is just really whittle through some of the best features or best benefits or best styles of courses that I've ever been on, and some of the things that I've learned from delivering courses for the past 6 years, and the improvements that we've made to our courses and our training and our coaching and our support over the years. And this is the stuff that, if you got all of this in a single course, you'd be looking at a pretty damn good course. But most of this is actually really important. So let's go through the top things that I think you should look for. So for the course content itself, with maybe some very few exceptions for very simple stuff, you should always get a lifetime access or a low annual access to the course content and updates. If you pay, a few thousand for a course and you only get it for a year or two, then you're basically going to be left high and dry. You've got to keep paying it if it's complicated, then, because they're going to be updating their knowledge. And so try and get courses with lifetime access. And a really bad example of the opposite was a course I went on that they may have changed this, but at the time this was 2CCX with Russell Brunson, and it was a couple of grand a month for their marketing, high-level marketing mastermind program. And when I left, I lost access to all the content. So I paid quite a few £1,000s over a number of months. And then as soon as I left, I lost access to everything, and I couldn't actually continue on that journey, which was a real shame. I felt a bit let down by that. So I don't do that for my courses, because I think that's not appropriate. If someone's paid for a course and they've paid, whatever the minimum, whatever the charge is for that course, then I think they should have continued access to it. And if I want to get more out of my clients, I'll create a new program which will add more benefit to their business, rather than trying to get them to keep on paying for the same thing time and time again. That's not to say coaching. I think people should pay for coaching, because that's obviously the bit that takes the time. But actually the course content itself, once it's been paid for, then you should keep it. So keep an eye out for that, because you could be caught out. Now, also, on that note, the staff member that's doing it now isn't going to be the staff member that's doing it in a year's time or 2 years' time. So the ability to go back to that training is really important. This is our YouTube ads, for example. We've just brought somebody in new to take over the running of our YouTube ads, so my marketing manager can go and do something else. Now that person is going back to our training courses, and this is with Ad Clients, which is a brilliant training course, going back to that training course and actually tapping back into that knowledge to be able to then speed up really quickly. We haven't had to create all that, recreate all that training, that great training we've got in the course, because we've got lifetime access to it. So just a good example. Bad example, good example. Always try to get training courses or online courses or whatever it is with coaching and support. And I know sometimes there's cheap options. You can get £59 lifetime access or whatever, or £99, whatever. But if you don't get the coaching, then you're going to hit barriers along the way that you then end up not being able to overcome, and you don't get the value from the course. It's just a total waste of time and money. And the biggest thing is time. Just because it only costs you £100, if it takes you 20 hours and you get nothing from it, it's 20 hours lost. If it costs £2,000 and you spend 20 hours and you get a massive result, it's £2,000 well invested. So just have that sort of mindset that coaching is brilliant, whether it's one-to-one, weekly group coaching, or help desk. You just want some way of getting the support to get the answer to the questions that you have, the challenge that you come across as you implement the stuff in your business. Because the course is going to be designed one-to-many, but you are an individual. You have your individual challenges, your strengths and your weaknesses, and you need somebody to support you with that. Second thing about this, make sure your business partner and ideally a manager for that department can join the training with you. As I've already said, you're not the one who's going to be implementing this, so it shouldn't just be you that has access. That's totally pointless. I don't know how my YouTube ads are run in detail. I know the theory, I know the principle, I know the concept. I've watched the training quickly once through. I don't know the detail. My staff learn it by going on the courses, and they have access so they can go through the training to be able to do it for me. So important. So ideally, the coaching program will have a manager or a business owner, if you haven't got any staff yet, a business owner version of the course. And ideally, they'll also have a staff version, because you're implementing something in your business. Like I was saying before, you want to implement stuff, you want to create the systems and then delegate down. So the way we teach it on our courses is we give you, the business owner, the knowledge, and then we give you the systems to delegate down. So you don't even have to create them yourself, because we're a systems company. That's what we do. But, so that's what you're looking for, is that how the strategy, the strategy and the why you need this in your business, and then the implementation is actually doing the work. You want to be able to delegate that down. So make sure there is training specifically for your staff for when you're trying to get this work done on a daily basis going forward. Like I was saying, the marketing example, coming up with a strategy. I want to create new Facebook posts. I'm doing the sort of visionary stuff, great, but posting the stuff every single day, editing the videos, or creating the thumbnails, that's not going to be done by you. So you need the system to be able to actually do that. So make sure your staff are getting trained to do that. At worst, that they have access to the original training. At best, that there is actually specific training for your staff to do the tasks within that that you're getting taught to do in the training. Onboarding calls. So I used to ignore onboarding calls with training, and I think it was at my peril, because onboarding calls are super important just to make sure that you understand how to get the most value out of the course as quickly as possible. So don't skip your onboarding calls and look for courses that have them. If there are quizzes, certifications you're going through, that's really good, especially when you're delegating to staff, so you can track their progress. Or if you can actually see on a leaderboard, or even just know from their login, how much of the course have they completed. So when they've spent 10 hours doing it and you realize they've only done module 1, something not right there. So it's really good if you can in some way track their progress, either by their completion of certain modules or quizzes, or in actually tracking them going through. Another point, when the plan you get in the course is usually a good plan. The person you're buying the course off, hopefully you've researched them, they've got good references, they've probably done this a few times before, so stick to the plan and make sure there is a plan. That was my point. So when you're looking for a course, make sure there's clear, defined deliverables and goals. What are you getting out of this? How will you know when you're successful in implementing this? And what are the timelines to those stages of success? So if, for us, for example, if you are Coming in, you want to know how to delegate effectively. You want to know how to set up all your apps. You want to know how to create your systems. You want to hire a virtual assistant. We'll give you timelines. Bang, bang, bang. Those are the things you need to do. These are timelines for getting them done. And that's the sort of thing you're trying to do. So, and also just be realistic. When you go in, it's good to ask maybe, what else is there? Do you have other programs? Don't look to invest in them all now. You'll just get overwhelmed. But be aware that what you go in and do, that your first course with a company may not be the last one. And that's not them trying to just rinse you and keep selling onto you. Of course, they want to keep you as a lifetime customer. But if they piled everything all into one, and 2CCX with ClickFunnels was a bit of an example of this. They pile everything in, and then you're just a bit of an overwhelm. And they did break it down into 3 stages. But it was sort of all part of the same package, and it did feel a bit overwhelming. So I'm not saying it was great content, by the way, in that course, but it was just the way it was laid out was a little bit overwhelming for me. So if you go into a course, then you expect that they've actually taken all of their knowledge, everything they know about the thing that you're trying to learn, and they've broken it down into the bite-sized chunks, hopefully in a logical and useful order, to be able to get you to the result you're looking for as quickly as possible without getting overwhelmed. So I think you just be good to ask that, to find out what the plan is, what is next after you do this particular stage. And sort of leading on from that, where is this course, is this training, is this book, is it appropriate for your stage of business right now? And I'll give you a really good example, a book that many of you may have read called Traction by Gino Wickman. Now, Traction is full of just golden nuggets, absolutely brilliant. But to implement most of what he teaches in a small or micro business, so 0 to 10 employees, it takes a lot of creative license. Like, he talks about stuff, he's aiming that book at medium-sized businesses, 50, 200, 300 staff. And that, when you read the way he talks about stuff, the leadership he talks about, that's why I think it really leans itself to. Whereas if you're looking for a book for a small business, you may specifically look for books that are written for small business, or courses that are for small businesses, for example. Like, our courses are specifically aimed at small businesses with 0 to 10 employees. That's our niche. That's who we focus our efforts on. That's the language that we use. We don't talk about corporate events and having manager leadership getaways and training events, because we don't expect people to have a team of managers. We expect people maybe to have one manager, and typically none, and it's the owner being the manager, and how do we actually remove you from being the manager and getting your first manager? That's the sort of where we're at, that level of business. So that's what we focus on. So whatever your business level is at, when you're choosing courses, make sure that is a good fit for you. Maybe obvious, but I know I've made that mistake before and invested time in reading books and also in doing courses which weren't really appropriate. Even if they were very good. And I cite Traction as a good example. Yes, I took away a couple of golden nuggets, but it's a long book, and I've read it actually a number of times, but it probably isn't suitable for my size of business right now. So if you don't do this, then you end up that if you don't get to the end of a course, you're not going to get value because you've not put the stage into place and got the deliverables. You'll also, if you don't do this, probably never finish or implement half of what you ever pay for, because you do not have time to do this yourself. But if you do this, then you will get stuff done. You'll get the value, return on the investment for every course you buy. You'll get, out of doing this, you automatically create the person who does the work, so you don't have to teach anybody. And then them in turn can create the systems to teach the next person, and so on. If you do this, your staff will stick around for longer because they'll love learning and being a part of something and building and creating systems. And if they don't want to do this stuff, then probably they're the wrong people for your business. Get people who want to learn, who want to be better, who want to better themselves and make themselves more valuable in the world. And you'll increase the value of your team by doing this. And in the long run, you'll probably save money even though you pay your staff more, because you're building people up from the bottom rather than hiring in from the top. So actually the cost outlay for getting expert work will be much, much lower in the long run. And if you do this, you'll continually move your business forward, stay at the head of the game without increasing your workload and without you having to fill your brain with a load of stuff that you don't really need to know. So that's it. That is my lowdown on how to get the absolute most out of training courses, how to get your staff to do the hard work for you, how to implement and how to take that what they've learned and actually get ongoing value in your business, both now and in the future going forward. I've also talked about some of the key characteristics of great courses and a lot of the stuff that I've tried to emulate in the courses that we teach, and also what will happen if you do this and what will happen if you don't. Hopefully that's been helpful. If you have found this useful, please hit the button right now. Leave us a review. Leave us a 5 stars if you feel it was great. It does wonders for our reach and helps us reach even more people. Please do comment. We do read every single comment we ever find, or ever see, or ever find, we ever get. And and head over to systemised.com for show notes, for more information, for downloads, and access to our webinars, training, and other free stuff. Cool. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day, and I will look forward to seeing you or hearing you, speaking to you, whichever, next time. All right. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining me and listening to this episode. I'm well aware there are hundreds of great business podcasts out there, and you chose to listen to this one, and for that I am truly grateful. Hopefully what you heard today took you one step closer to building a successful business so you can share your passion with the world and serve an ever-growing number of people. If you got value out of today's episode, then so will someone else you know. By sharing with others what has helped you along your way, you will grow your influence and be the guy or girl that everybody wants to know. So please hit the share button right now, and also remember to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss future episodes. It's impossible for me to cover absolutely everything in these podcasts, so please do head over to systemisedyoursuccess.com right now and download the show notes, transcriptions, and some of my best frameworks and systems for free. Thanks again for tuning in and being a part of this amazing community. Until next time, this is Dr. Steve Day, and you've been listening to Systemize Your Success.